Hello CoinOpTV viewers, this is James and I am here today taking a look at the brand new isometric RPG Torment Tides of Numenera, which is the spiritual successor to the classic 1999 title Planescape Torment. For this video we're going to follow along with one of the early side quests available in this game, and I'm going to chop out a large chunk of the middle of it because it's a very long quest, but only because of the amount of reading involved. And I do specify reading because there is a little bit of audio narration in the game, but for the most part it's all text and you're going to read it on your own. For fans of this type of game, I don't think that's going to be any sort of surprise. However, if this is your first Infinity Engine or Pillar of Eternity style game, then it's something you should know going into the title. And the other thing you should know is that there is no combat in this quest, which is actually going to describe a lot of the quests in the game, at least in the early part. Combat is very much optional for many of the quests and encounters in this game, and honestly that's a very good thing because in my opinion the combat in this game is pretty bad. In fact, it's to the point where I want to actively avoid combat as much as possible because I do not like the system. I'm not sure why they changed from the Pillars of Eternity or Infinity Engine style of combat, but what they've replaced it with is just not engaging. Fortunately, like I said, it's pretty much all optional so long as you have the appropriate character skills and you know how to navigate the dialogue tree properly. There are certain occasions where it is unavoidable. I've encountered this in a couple of side quests where no matter what I did, I got into a fight. There are a couple of ones scripted for the story. But for the most part, this game has a lot of different ways that you can tackle each scenario, and that might involve combat, that might involve finding an item that the NPC needs, or just talking your way out of it. It all depends on how you build the character, and that's really cool. I just wish they had spent more time fine-tuning the combat so that it was engaging and that that option remains viable. I see what they were going for. It definitely follows something very similar to the Banner Saga style of combat, but it's not as nuanced, it's not as interesting, you don't have quite as many choices, which is very odd for this game because choice is what this game is about. As you can see from the selection that I have available on the screen right now, I've got 4 different options I can choose from, and this is actually on the lesser side of the options available. I've had a couple of quests where I've had 7 or 8 options on the screen, and some of those options are leading to further groups of options that'll ask questions about what's going on, what can I do in town, how do I get to this location, and so on. It is actually overwhelming at first, but you get used to it, especially if you have prior experience with these titles. But definitely keep that in mind. You will be spending a lot of time in dialogue trees. And where this becomes important is, of course, in building your character. And from the beginning, you have an absolute blank slate of a character. It's designed to be whatever you want that character to be, and it's very upfront with that. The problem is, in the beginning, the game does not explain to you how these skills work, what skills are important. A lot of the things that go into the creation of your character aren't explained until well after you've created your character. So I highly recommend, if you do pick up this game, start an easy version of the game on the easiest difficulty, learn how it works, and then once you know how it works, go ahead and start over with a character built in a way that you actually like, whether that's combat or silver-tongued or, some mix of those. And so let's go ahead and get caught up with the quest that's currently in progress. If you haven't been reading along as I've been going, and I don't blame you, then the quick version of it is we have met an NPC and his friend is currently being tortured to death for a crime that they committed together. And we are going to pretend that he has gotten a letter of pardon. In order to do this, we first need to get a city official badge. We need to get a copy of another pardon that's already gone through. And then we need to present it to the executioners to get a stay of execution. So there's a lot of moving parts in this quest, but this is actually a very straightforward quest by the standards of this game. And you'll also notice there are no waypoint markers, there are no hints reminding you, oh, you need to do this or go over here to do that. This is not that kind of game. This is not Hold Your Hand. That goes in line with it being a successor to Planescape Torment, because Torment came out long before those things became standard in RPGs. So keep that in mind and go into this game with the right expectations. Now, as you're seeing here, we're doing a dialogue option, and I am trying to persuade this guy to give me the badge that I need for the quest. And in order to do this, I am going to spend points that my characters have, and I can choose my own character, or I can choose one of my NPCs. In this case, my NPC is much better at this kind of thing, so I had him do it. I have a limited number of these points per day, and I get them back from sleeping, and I might get them back from, a critical success or something like that. But it's very important that you ration these out, because they are good for an entire day. And while I'm in a city right now, so I can just run to an inn and sleep whenever I want, once I'm in the field, I might not have that option. If I'm in the middle of a dungeon and I run out of the ones that I use for combat, I could be in a very difficult situation. So you need to make sure you've got the ability to replenish these at all times. And now in this quest, I have returned to the original part. I've cut out 2 parts where I got the original pardon, and I talked to another character to get pieces that I needed for that pardon. And I have now freed the guy from the stocks because they totally bought that I'm an official with a pardon, and thus everyone will go about their business and have a jolly merry good time, because nothing bad ever happens in Torment. Now, by the standards of this game, this quest is extremely straightforward, and there are very few branching options that you can take. However, most of the quests are going to take all sorts of different twists and turns, and you'll probably have to talk to multiple NPCs in order to get a full picture. And if you miss an NPC, you might not have a dialogue option available to you, which will allow you to resolve it peacefully, or to bribe somebody, or something along those lines. And it's very easy to miss all of these things, and it will result in you talking to everybody in the game multiple times, and this takes forever. So it is very easy to see why this game will take you a long time to beat. And if that sounds appealing, then this game is great, because the story is engaging, the quests are entertaining, the people that you meet are humorous or evil or both, and there is so much to love about the story in this game, especially if you're coming from Planescape Torment. It's got a very similar sense of humor, a very similar style in terms of graphics presentation, the strangeness of the world you're in, and so on and so forth. It's just annoying that you're going to have to fight the game most of the way to get into the story. A lot of the skill checks are tedious, the combat is uninteresting, and a lot of it is just unintuitive. And I'm all for games that don't want to hold your hand and force you to explore and find things the old school way, but that's not the problem here. The real problem is that there are artificial obstacles in the way which make this harder than it needs to be, and it gets in the way of the storytelling. I really did enjoy this game when it was on point and when the story was front and center, because it was fantastic and great, and I laughed and enjoyed myself, but it was so frustrating to get there. And it's very difficult to recommend this game to people who have not played games of this style before, whether it's Pillars of Eternity or the older games like Baldur's Gate. But if you have played those games, if you know what you're getting into, this is an excellent example of the genre for people who are experienced in it. But people who never played those games, I would highly recommend you start with Pillars of Eternity or one of the classic Baldur's Gate games, because they are much more friendly to new players than this is. And then come back to this once you're used to the systems, because the story is definitely worth checking out, even if the rest of the game is problematic. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this video. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you found it helpful, and I hope that you do check out Torment, even if you need to get through a couple other games first. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video if you enjoyed it, and check out the website CoinOpTV for written reviews and additional news and information. Thank you guys once again, and we'll see you next time.